I think we're going to transition now. I want to welcome Nancy Lee. She's the president of Social Marketing Services Incorporated. She's a strategic advisor to C+C and adjunct professor at the University of Washington. She's got 30 years of experience in social marketing, and she's here to present on 10 environmental social marketing success stories so we can learn and apply these to our own programs. Turn it over to you, Nancy.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, is that working?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for having me come. I've only had a chance to see a few of the presentations, but they were very impressive and inspiring. And I hope I now can also contribute to your success in reducing waste in litter. So I'm going to be talking about social marketing, and I'll just start off with a formal definition for those of you who need maybe just a little refresh. It's a disciplinary process, and it uses marketing principles and techniques to influence priority audience behaviors that are going to benefit society as well as the individual. Sometimes there's things we want people to reject, like not start putting something in the food waste that now that you just got a new container and put the wrong thing in there. Modify. Sometimes we want you to do one project one time and another. So modify, go from 10,000 steps a day to 12,000 steps a day. Accept something new and abandon a behavior. So it's all stages of that. But it is always behavior change for good, improving health, preventing injuries, protecting the environment, engaging communities, enhancing financial well-being, and supporting educational milestones. It was first discovered 50 years ago, we're celebrating that now, by Philip Kotler and Gerald Zaltman. Just a second, this thing is going automatic. Well, so this is an easy way to explain what social marketing is. When we want to change behaviors, sometimes we go to the group on the left, which is like we can influence them with just telling them what to do, and they'll do the behavior. There's this middle group called the Help Me group that social marketing was born for. That is a group that thinks it's not a bad idea to do the behavior, but they've got some barriers, but they might not see the benefits. And then finally, there's the group, they're not going to do the behavior unless you make them. It's interesting. I attended a 2-day behavior economics workshop the last 2 days, and he said that the Help Me group was really very similar to Nudge. And I was so excited to see him use that language. He calls that the Nudge group. And on the far right, they don't call it the Make Me group. They call it the Nudge, the Shove group. So education, marketing, social marketing, and law, just translated into picking up after pets. On the far left is just giving them information. In the middle is giving them something they need in order to do the behavior, helping them. And on the far right is reminding them that if they don't do this, there will be a penalty. So the marketing intervention toolbox is something I'll also talk about today. And in that toolbox are the 4 Ps: products, price, place, and promotion. These are the things that we have to influence behaviors. And how does it differ from commercial marketing? Well, commercial marketing, marketers there need to sell goods and services for a profit to benefit the shareholders. And nonprofit marketing, you need to promote the services and support the fundraising for that organization. Cause marketing is there to raise awareness and concern about a cause. And cause-related marketing is when a portion of the sales of like a product at the grocery store goes to benefit some cause. And then social marketing is benefiting society and the priority audience. I'm going to share with you 10 success stories that are environmentally oriented. I won't read them all now, but I'll get started on the first one, reducing food waste. So the framework I'll use for each one of these stories is I'll talk about what's the wicked problem that this is addressing, what was the purpose and focus of the effort, who was the priority audience, what was the desired behavior for that audience, what are audience insights related to the barriers, the benefits, the motivators, what intervention tools were used, and what were the results. I'm going to start off with reducing food waste. I know this goes way back, but I just love this example. Back in the year 2000, in Oregon, in the metro region government area, they said they had the perfect storm, two wicked problems at the same time. 180,000 tons of food being annually put into the solid waste system. At the same time, the Oregon Food Bank was struggling. They created a program called the Food Rescue Program. There were partners in restaurants, chefs, food banks, 3 counties, 25 cities, and an organization called the Food Alliance. The priority audience was not consumers, households, it was food businesses. And what they wanted them to do was to donate their perishable and surplus prepared foods to agencies serving the hungry. They branded it Fork It Over to reduce hunger and waste. What did the restaurant owners think about this? They took time to ask them what would make this work. Well, they said, well, you'll have to tell us how to get involved and have to make that easy. You'll have to let us know how we get the food to you. And what would be exciting for you? Well, if you would let us select the group, the agency that it goes to, that would be very motivating. One near us, probably, in our community. So the interventions based on those insights were that they had a multimedia campaign, including a lot of news stories shouting out about it. They got public pledges from restaurants to do this. They got online registration from these restaurants. They enabled them to select the agency where they wanted to donate their food, go to. And this is the best part, I think, they picked it up from them at a scheduled time that worked for them. The results between 1999 and 2005, about 5 years, 18 million pounds were forked over by these organizations. They spent $700,000 to administer that program. They saved almost that much in disposal costs. So given that the food was worth 17 million, for every dollar invested, there was a $31 benefit, an incredible return on investment that really gave a lot of credibility to the program. Second example.
6, increasing crab populations in the United States. The problem was in Chesapeake Bay in Washington, D.C., it was the largest estuary in the country. And in 2003, the blue crab harvests were at their near record low, a 32% reduction. The purpose and focus of this effort was to reduce nutrient pollutions so that it wouldn't harm these blue crabs, with a focus on chemical lawn fertilizers.
The desired behavior was to not stop fertilizing, but to skip the spring fertilizer and wait until fall. Insights that they discovered from the audience were, well, I want to look good in the neighborhood. That's why I fertilize. And at the same time, though, I really want my beloved local seafood, especially crabs. So the marketing intervention included a press launch at a seafood restaurant, a petition for residents to skip spring fertilizer, norming devices such as yard signs, and policymakers mentioning it in press conferences. The program was branded Save the Crabs, Then Eat Them.
Spring rains in the DC area carry excess fertilizer to our sewers and rivers. It travels to the Chesapeake Bay where blue crabs have been rapidly disappearing. They suffocate slowly from lack of oxygen. No crabs should die like this. They should perish in some hot, tasty, melted butter. So hold off the fertilizer until fall, because ridding the planet of delicious backfin is just plain wrong.
The results were that before the campaign, 52% were planning to fertilize in the spring. But after the campaign, it was reduced by 25% to 39% planning to fertilize in the spring. And so much of this was about emphasizing the benefit that the customer wanted. Scooping the poop in Austin, Texas, increasing disposal of pet waste. This was a long time ago, but it really set the market for doing this. 120,000 households with dogs, and each dog a half a pound of waste daily, 60,000 pounds a day in Austin. So that's 22 million pounds a year. The purpose of this effort was to decrease the harmful bacteria and other pathogens in parks, yards, streams, and lakes, with a focus on timely and proper disposal of pet waste. The desired behavior: scoop the poop, bag it, and place it in the trash. Barriers: A lack of convenient access to disposable bags. I forgot mine. A lack of trash cans to quickly dispose of it. Finding the task messy and smelly. Believing one little pile is not going to be a problem. Some even believing it's a good fertilizer. So they overcame these barriers, as we know, because they've been around for a long time. They started the mutt mitt stations with bag holder giveaways. Their price strategies, which is non-monetary incentive, would be a non-emergency number to call to report violators or to report that the dispenser was empty. Place strategies, that was the number to call if they're empty, sorry. And yard signs were mailed to homes. There were promotional strategies using social media, posters, public events, just like the one on the right. And in the back, that's supposed to be the size of pet waste a day. That isn't actually pet waste, but they wanted to make it real for people. So looking at this quickly, when they started in 2001, if we go down to 2009, they went from a cost to a pound per pound to collect and dispose of properly from 27 cents a pound down to 8 cents a pound. I want to just talking about picking up after pet waste, I want to share a personal story about how I discovered the power of social norms. Out walking my dog, I live on Mercer Island, out there walking in the downtown park, and my dog had already gone in the morning before I left on my walk, so I didn't think he needed to go again. But we're walking around the park, and lo and behold, she pulls over and starts to poop. And I was devastated because I didn't have a bag. And I didn't even think about this. I promise you, it was just automatic. I bent down and pretended to pick it up because there were people across the park that I knew could see me. And I stood up and I said to myself, why did I do that? Oh my gosh, that's what they're called social norms. It's a norm to do it. And therefore, I'm going to do it. Fourth example, increasing safe wildlife viewing. The wicked problem being that increasing visits and photographing wildlife leads to wildlife as well as human endangerment. The purpose of this effort was to protect the visitor and the wildlife. The focus is on keeping a safe distance from the wildlife. The priority audience were tourists at 3 U.S. national parks, one in Maryland, one in Colorado, one in Virginia. The behavior was to comply with the wildlife viewing guidelines. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, I don't know what distance is a safe one. And besides, I'm careful. I've done this before and never had a problem. Well, what would you want out of doing this? Well, I want to give wildlife space to be wild. And at the same time, I really want to get great photos. So tell me what would work. So basically, they made it enjoyable and easy with a tool where at each of these locations, they were able to give them instructions that created for them an easy way to interpret what was the distance that would work, as well as tips on taking great photos. Promotion included messages highlighting personal benefits. Give them room and use your Zoom. Media channels included sandwich boards and rack cards and flyers at restrooms and kiosks, and social media showing photos of visitors keeping the distance to help create that norm. The results were at the Maryland site, there was a 29% increase. In Colorado, a 21% increase in safe viewing, and in Virginia, a 26% increase. And since that time, it's been adopted by several parks, and there's been a broad distribution of recommended guidelines established. The fifth story, a current wicked problem, wildfires. This is a story in the UK. In 2008, they had over 7,000 grass and mountain fires each year, and 95% of them were deliberate. And they were endangering, of course, wildlife, firefighters, and the public. The purpose of the campaign and effort was to reduce the incidence of deliberate grass fires with a focus on the peak fire season. Their priority audience were 13 to 16-year-olds due to the fact that they had the highest incidence and it was a norm for them to do that. The desired behavior was for them to refrain from lighting fires outdoors. And what they learned was motivating was messages like, this is harmless fun. They thought that it was harmless. And so they didn't think it was a problem. And they said, it's only grass and it's going to grow back. Well, my parents and grandparents did it. And what else? We're bored. So the marketing interventions made it cool, fun, free, and popular, using Bernie the mascot. And the slogan was, "Grass is green, fire is mean." It was implemented in prime time for fires 1 week before Easter and 1 week after. There were special events at the fire stations, and there were pledges. But I think one of the most useful things was that the service personnel daily attended the schools during lunchtime to promote this. The results were 53% fewer deliberate grass fires during the 2-week Easter period than in the control city. And there was major funding for sustainability. Sixth story, the wicked problem, global warming. Purpose, reduce electrical power consumption. A focus, energy efficient products. Priority audience, consumers purchasing home energy consuming products, and the behavior was to purchase energy efficient ones. And then everything from appliances to light bulbs to televisions, and of course, computers. And the top barriers for people when this got launched, before it got launched, was they didn't know how to find energy efficient ones. It wasn't clear how to do that. And there was not an understanding of the link between home energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. What did they want out of purchasing of an efficient one? To save money and to protect the environment. They had 75 product categories for Energy Star. The emphasis was on savings and they do pledges, which is a non-monetary incentive. They, of course, were promoted in retail stores, online, and they made a visible label on the products, probably one of the most strongest thing they did. And the promotion included, did you know that the average home pollutes more than the average car? Most people didn't know that. So C+C, as mentioned earlier, has helped build the Energy Star brand from a small federal program to a leading purchase influencer with a 90% national brand awareness over time. And it's helped Americans save over 4 trillion kilowatt hours of energy, achieve 3 billion tons of greenhouse gas reduction, and over 30 billion on energy bills. Seventh story, seafood choices. The wicked problem, increasing number of endangered marine species. I think you've talked about this, due to interactions with fishing gear. And overfishing steadily increasing with 63% of stock needing rebuilding. So in 1999, the Monterey Bay Aquarium in California launched the Seafood Watch program with a purpose to increase the purchasing of green fish and decrease the purchasing of redfish. The focus was on facilitating decisions at the point of purchase. The priority audience were those most likely to use a card that they created and make requests. So this group buys green products, they avoid companies with negative reputations, they pay higher prices for environmentally responsible products. They believe their actions make a difference. That's estimated to be at least 15 to 25% of the US population, which is not a small size for an audience. The behavior, purchase the sustainable fish, the green ones. When they would do that, then they would influence chefs at restaurants, and that would influence buyers at grocery stores. And then that would influence suppliers, and that would influence the fisheries. So the core product was the sustainable, healthy supply of my favorite fish, what they wanted. The actual product to buy was green fish, and there were things to help them. We call those augmented products, like a wallet card and then an iPhone app. The wallet card looks like this. You can fold it up and you can read it this way. And then the app has all those same things, where they're really showing you the best, the good alternatives, and the ones to avoid. The cards were free. The phone app was free. The place, they could be ordered online, and of course the app could be downloaded. They are also available, the cards are also available at many partner locations. It was promoted through public relations, advocacy with chefs, websites, and special events. Downstream, 45 million cards have been distributed by 2014, and 39% of adults referred to the program. 55,000 people attend the Monterey Bay Aquarium's annual events on this. Midstream, 150 restaurants and retailers have pledged to not serve the red list. In 2012, Whole Foods removed all red fish. Story number 8, the wicked problem, bulkheads and structures on marine and lake shorelines that reduce erosion, impact natural habitats for marine species. The purpose, reduce the amount of hard armor on marine shorelines in the Puget Sound with a goal where there was 25% bulkheads and hard armor. A focus, residential properties. The audience, there are two audiences here with separate strategies. The first audience was currently do not have hard armor, but considering adding hard armor. The behavior, leave it unarmored. And for those currently do not have hard armor and considering moving, remove all or portion and replace with shore protection products. Barriers. Well, I'm concerned if I don't have that with erosion and storms and waves and tides reducing my shoreline. And there are regulations and permitting to go through. And for some groups, it was the expense of removal. So the branded campaign by C+C included the products of site visits, which would be a service, workshops, how-to packets. Their incentives, monetary incentives included mini grants and potential tax breaks. Promotion included sharing real stories of people who had done this, yard signs, and a Facebook page with over 200 members. As of 2015, there were 1,300 plus landowners who had removed 3,200 linear feet. As of 2021, all 12 counties surrounding Puget Sound now provide these shore-friendly resources. Story number 9, state of Virginia and the Eastern Coast. Background was that there was a loss of native vegetation on the shores, and the impact this was having on wildlife habitat and water quality was a concern. The purpose of this effort, to protect the habitat and to improve water quality. What were they going to make this happen? They were going to focus on native plants. The priority audience were homeowners on shoreline, interested and engaged in landscaping property, garden centers and nursery owners. What they wanted them to do was to choose native plants for landscape and replace invasive and non-native plants with native plants. Barriers, not knowing what's native, couldn't find them. They go to the garden centers and ask for them, and they didn't get much help. What did they do? They provided plant tags so that people could identify them. They increased inventory of them. They started promoting them with some of the community leaders. And then the nursery started making it very visible that they carried these East Shore native plants. And the slogan was "Their shore beautiful." It went from January 2009. They launched it. They did some testing of it, got some feedback, and then enhanced the campaign in the fall of 2009. Outcomes, they had a sales increase just from 2008 in 1 year by 10%. For a merchandiser like that, retail store, that's really great. And policy related, one garden center said they were going to go on with their own stock of native plants, and a new garden center was going to provide a special section and offer classes. And the last story is about the wicked problem of transportation, with 76% in some cases, in some communities, people driving alone. This impacts economy, environment, and health. So the effort here was to reduce drive alone trips. The focus, which I really thought was really brilliant, was on new residents to Portland. And why? Well, because new residents are identifiable. You can get their names from city governments and they can be purchased. They're ready for action because they've got decisions to be making about their commute. And they've been there, so they defined them also as those that have been there within 6 months. The behavior to use alternative transportation. What were the barriers? Same as we always hear. The time is more. The weather might not be good for biking or walking. Personal safety at night. Delays, and some about stigma. But in top of those barriers for new residents, there's also additional barriers of being overwhelmed with their move and a lack of familiarity with the city. I sure love how they addressed this. They created 4 kits: a walking kit, a biking kit, a transit kit, and a driving kit. But here's the best part. They're all free. I'm sorry, this is actually the best part. Not the postcard. It's going to be how they get this stuff. But they send out an initial postcard. So we heard you're new to the neighborhood. So go online to indicate what you're interested in. And then they brought out the kit. This is my favorite part. They came out on a bike and delivered that person the kit that would help, that was their favorite form of transportation that they wanted to explore. 200 fewer miles per new resident per year, with a 10% reduction in drive-alone trips. So just a few examples for litter, given that this is what this conference has been about. And so much of this, I want to say, is about making this easy. So I just searched and found some things that I thought were relevant. I saw something for cigarette butts, which I know you were talking about. They were called butt buckets. And they put them in convenient places, like around buildings, maybe at that 25-foot mark. And illuminating butt buckets, it's illuminated so they could see them at night. Then in terms of price incentive, there was a squad of litter spotters who had been recruited in the UK to patrol routes near schools. They would watch for a teenager who deposits their litter in a bin and give them shopping vouchers or cinema tickets to reward them. Drive-by litter place strategy, a drive-by litter bin in the UK. A lot of this is about making it easier. And then promotional, I've always loved this one from Texas. Spot me some trash, buttercup, empty feeling inside, where we splash. So don't mess with Texas, fill me up. Here on Mercer Island about 2 weeks ago, I'm walking through the park and I see this part of the park with these flags. So take a look there, you can see some green and red ones. And I kept walking and my husband and I were talking, we were going, what is that about? I have never seen those before. And at the end of the trail, there was this sign. Why all the flags? Each flag shows where unscooped dog poop was left in this park this month. Dog poop is not fertilizer. So we could talk about whether or not this was a good idea, because there's some people that think, and possibly true, that means that they won't think it, that they'll think it's a norm to do it. So it would be very interesting to test this. In summary, social marketing is behavior change for good. It's hard. There are principles and techniques that will help you succeed. Clarity of purpose and focus, a priority audience, single, simple, doable behaviors, getting audience insights about that behavior, getting their barriers, their benefits, motivators, what they tell you will make it more likely they will do it, and who would influence them. Consider all 4 Ps. You don't always use all of them, but it often takes all of them to knock down those barriers and provide benefits, and then report on behavior change outcomes. I will close by sharing this song my granddaughter sings that I wrote.
Like for social marketers around the world to see that they will have much more success by using all 4 marketers. The products are market perform. The price won't have such more success. The price is a way to save them time and energy. I'd like to see some marketers around the world experiencing the final P is one we use to shut up forever free. I'd like to see some marketers around the world to see what we use. If I do the smaller one, we'll sing in harmony.
Okay, I'm sorry about the over recording there. I apologize.
No problem. Well, we have about 5 minutes for questions. So feel free to put a question in the chat or raise your hand. Either of those will work. I guess to get started, Nancy, if a local government or nonprofit has a small budget, they're just getting started with social marketing, do you have any tips for them as they start this behavior change journey?
The best tip would be to do a pilot, a small scale, so that you get to test some things, you get to find some things out. It won't cost as much, but it needs to be something that you could still measure. So I think a pilot is probably my first strategy for you there. The second thing is be sure to take a look, around the world to see if it's already been done somewhere similar to that, and learn from that. The International Social Marketing Association is going to have a new portal for success stories and case studies, and it will cover all topics. And so the other thing then to do would be to look for current look for prior efforts.
Perfect. I see a hand up from Heather.
Nancy, that was enjoyable as usual. I love your talks. So you didn't really talk that much about evaluation, but I feel like evaluation is one of the most important things. People do work all the time. They do campaigns and they don't even know if they worked. Can you speak a little bit about evaluation?
Well, yeah, each of those stories did have evaluation. So I just want to make, but are you talking about the process of evaluation? Process, okay. Well, there's certainly lots of options, and it really kind of depends upon the schedule and implementation of your project. So sometimes it'll be before, after, sometimes it will be there'll be a control group. And so it really varies as to how that's going to be. But I certainly encourage very, very strong strategies for this. And so therefore you're looking at controls, or you're looking at before and after, and using quantitative methods. And so that often involves some kind of a survey. And those now are a little bit easier to do, of course, since we've got online. You don't have to do mail-in surveys. And you can also do a small scale evaluation instead of the whole campaign, as long as you choose let's say a geographic area that represents most of the geographic areas. So you could also zero in on one area, or one that has the same profile as the other areas. And then you wouldn't have to have as many people. It wouldn't be as hard to gather the strategies.
Great. You've sort of touched on one person's question about recommendations on monitoring and evaluation tools like logic models.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any recommendations on some free resources to learn more about social marketing, or groups that people could become connected with that would help?
Well, the Pacific Northwest Social Marketing Association, which has over 100 members, and it has quarterly forums and also networking sessions and a listserv. Yes, it's not free because it's $35 a year to be a member, but all of those services, all of those, the webinars are free. You can get recordings of them, and the networking sessions go along with that. And then there's the listserv that goes along with it. So I would say that would be the best way to get connected and most simple way to get connected here.
And I will personally recommend your book, which I really benefited from. I had the privilege of being able to take a workshop, but that book on its own is a really nice tool to kind of walk you through the process as well.
Well, let me just say that we have a book coming out this month, 100 cases from around the world, social marketing success stories. And it comes out sometime in July. 2 pages on two-page success stories. And there are 30 of them for the environment.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. I'm
You're
going
welcome.
to turn it over now to Heather.
Okay, well, Nancy, I just am such a deep believer in social marketing. I hope everyone has gotten a really good idea of how well it works when you get real results. And it's not cheap. You really do need to spend about $350K in order to do that foundational research to do a really good program. But there are ways to make it a little cheaper. There are things you can do that are cheaper in that realm. So I am super pleased to introduce Representative Liz Berry, who is, we'll tell you what district she's in, 36, but anyway, she'll tell you the parameters. Liz has been, she's only been in the legislature for a short period of time, but she's gotten a lot done already. And she's here to talk about her interests related intersectionally with litter. Thank you so much, Rep. Berry, for coming.
Thank you so much, Heather, for the introduction. It's so great to see you all today. I am so excited that you're all here to talk about litter. Like, what a bunch of nerds. It's great. I love it. My name's Liz Berry. I am serving the Washington State House of Representatives. I represent the 36th legislative district. So that's Queen Anne, Magnolia, Ballard, Greenwood, all the way up to Carkeek Park. And I'm west, so I hug Puget Sound. I was elected in 2020, and one of the top concerns I heard about from my community was urgently doing everything we can to save our planet. So I asked to serve on the Environment Energy Committee, and realized that there were a lot of folks working on all kinds of different issues that related to that committee, climate change, but there weren't as many people advocating for recycling systems and reducing litter and waste. And that was when I was introduced to Heather. I started working with Senator Mona Doss, who I know many of you have worked with, on these issues, and it has become a real passion of mine. My most important role, though, is mom to George and Eleanor. So my son George is now 6 and my daughter Eleanor is 2. And what was really striking for me was a couple years ago when my son George was just 4 years old, we were walking along the Puget Sound one morning and he turned to me and said that he learned that the greatest threats to our oceans was garbage. And I thought that that was really profound for me. I was right in the middle of working on legislation, each SB 5022 to reduce plastic waste systems. We were successful in passing. I know many of you are probably very familiar with that bill. And I thought to myself, if a 4-year-old can be so profound and get right to the point about what we need to do, what we need to change, then I wanted to be a part of that. And actually, oh my gosh, George just walked in. Do you want to say hi to everybody?
I don't see anybody.
All their cameras off. Anyway, this is George saying hi right now. Okay, I'm gonna finish my presentation, okay? So anyway, that was a fun little cameo you all got to see in the flesh. There he is right there. But I have seen litter increasing over time in Washington over many years, and this is something we need to tackle. And it's been a hard road to travel, but I am so happy we have so many advocates here on this call that have helped to work on this. And the most important thing we need to do is prevent litter in the first place. And that's why I intend, sorry, that's all my kids. Let me close the door. Real life is happening here. That is why I intend to reintroduce the Renew Act next year. And I think you're going to be getting more into the details of that bill, but extended producer responsibility. I'm also looking at a bottle deposit system here in Washington. I went last month to Oregon to tour their system. I intend to do that also in British Columbia. But the states that have bottle deposit systems show much better reduce of waste and of those bottles. We know that the Renew Act is critical and will modernize recycling and reduce waste. The states have already passed that. We're looking to them about what we can be doing here in Washington. This problem takes all of us working together. And of course, I want to see our state, Washington, the best state in the nation, to continue to lead on this issues. And that's what I intend to do. So thank you so much, Heather, for having me. I'm sorry about the child cameo situations, but that's what we're dealing with here over in my house. So thank you everyone for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Rep. Berry. And you quite a few speakers have had children co-hosting with them. So we look forward to all of your big successes in next year's legislative session.
Yes, with your help. So thank you, everyone.
And everyone here. Thank you.
All right, so thank you for that. And we want to thank all of the presenters who've come to the summit and helped present. Also, thank you for everyone who came. We were up to 100 and I don't remember how many. I'm sure that can be in a follow-up email, but we had quite a few people join us and share a lot of good ideas today. We will be sending out a survey through brown paper tickets, and if everyone could fill that out, that could help us with doing a follow-up summit next year. And if you're willing to volunteer to help organize the summit next year, that would also be great, and you can indicate that on the evaluation. We'll send out links to the recordings and the breakout room notes as well after. Probably not today, but in the coming days. So thank you all for taking part in this.